Hey everybody, welcome back. Devin, the OG original Grognard, sitting down here taking a look at and hopefully going to be playing through Table Battles from Hollandspiel Games. Did a shrink rip on it not too long ago. Alright, maybe it was a long time ago. Finally getting a chance to sit down, actually go through and hopefully show you some gameplay. Before we do some gameplay though, I do have to kind of go over the anatomy of a card. What does the card mean? What are all these cool numbers and these words and stuff that are on it? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at it. I kind of went over the scenario cards in the last video, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. All right, so let's go ahead and start at the top. You have the name of the formation here, and if I do want to remind everybody that we are playing the Battle of White Mountain, 8 November 1620, between the Bohemian Revolt and the Imperial and Catholic League. I did a little bit of research on it, and to call it a battle was kind of a misnomer. It was kind of more of a skirmish. And I think the Bohemians lost very, very badly at. But regardless, so here we have, all right, so we're taking a look at the Catholic League Cavalry. The number here in the circle that's how many hits that it can take. So if you'll notice, the hits are how many of these little wooden blocks you put out in front of it. So Catholic League Cavalry can take 4 hits, so it's got 4 blocks. Catholic League Infantry can take 6 hits, so it's got 6 blocks, so on and so forth. Pretty easy. Now, I will go and say that in the cards, on both sides, blue and red, there are 2 different types of colors. Dark blue, dark red, light red. And there are, conversely, different colored blocks to go along with it. So here we have the dark blue blocks and light blue blocks. For scenarios that only have one color type, for example, this scenario that has got just red and blue, it doesn't matter what color blocks you use. In other scenarios where you do have different color, they call them wings. So if you've got light blue and dark blue on the same side, there'll be different wings. Then you'll break it up, the sticks that way. You don't have to worry about that in this scenario, but it is just something that you have to be aware of. All right, so now what do we have next? 3 and 4. Okay, so this is kind of a dice-based mechanic for dice-based activation. Almost, I am loath to use the term worker placement, but that's kind of what it is. You're rolling dice, you're looking for numbers, and you're looking for the dice to place on your cards to use those dice to power and to charge the effects of the card. So basically, the 3 and the 4, those are the types of dice when you roll the numbers that you're looking for on the dice that you can place on this card. So you got a handful of dice, and each side starts off with 6 dice. See, we got 6 dice right here. And I will admit I'm a little bit embarrassed that when I first opened up the bag and saw that there were red and blue dice, I didn't exactly initially make the connection for red side and blue side. Yeah, I told you I'm not a clever man, geez. So when you're rolling dice, if you get 3s and 4s, you can place them on this card to try to power up and activate this card. And if you take a look, you got a whole bunch of different types. You got straight 4. You got 3, 4, you got 6 in parentheses, 5 in parentheses, 4 in parentheses, and 1, 2. All those numbers mean different things. So if you have just a normal number like this, a 3 or 4, that means you can put as many 3s or 4s that you roll in your hand on that card. If you have a number that's in parentheses, you can only place 1 dice of that number that you roll on that card. So for example, if you roll 6 sixes, but you want to place the dice on here, you can't place more than 1 because it's in parentheses. And if you notice, the Catholic League kind of has that with their 4, 5s, and 6s. They can only place 1 dice at a time. Then you've got straight 4, which means you have to place a series of straight numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. But they have to be 4 in a row, 4 contiguous numbers. Now there are also straight 3s, and you only need 3 in a row, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Now, the one thing I am not sure about, and I should probably contact Tom about this, is that I'm not sure if you have to get the straight in a single dice roll, or if you get, say, in one roll, a 2 and a 3, place those on there, and in future dice rolls, hope that you can get like a 1 or a 4, you know, do whatever you can to try to make a straight. So I'm not really sure if you can put dice on there hoping to get a straight eventually or not. Like I said, I'm going to have to talk to Tom about that. I'll probably should have done that before I started the video, but I just thought about that right now. And if you take a look at the Bohemian League, they've got 4s, 5s, 6s, and 5 6s. So looking at the armies automatically, you automatically have two different styles of approach that you're going to have to take with this. The Bohemians, when they place their dice, can place as many dice as they want in each one of the units, as long as, you know, conversely, if they're 4s, 5s, 6s, or 5s and 6s. One thing I will also point out, that if it's a 5 or a 6 or any number combination, like for example the Imperial Cavalry 1 or a 2, when you place dice on, you can only place numbers per turn equal to one of those. So say I rolled 3 5s and 3 6s, I could only put the 5s or the 6s on this card. I couldn't place both of them. So anyways, yeah, so we got a little bit, like I was saying, some difference between the two armies. The Bohemian League can place as many dice on their cards as they want, but they're limited to 4s, 5s, and 6s. The Imperial and Catholic League is basically, I got all the dice rolls, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6. However, a lot of their cards, half their cards, are only restricted to being able to place one dice per turn. So what we're going to see is, depending on the dice rolls, the Bohemian League can stack up their dice really quick if they get the dice rolls, but half the dice rolls are going to be completely useless to them, whereas for the Imperials and the Catholic League are going to be able to use all the dice. It's just they're limited with how much dice they can put out. What does that mean? Probably that the Imperials were slow to move, but were always reacting and being able to do something, whereas the Bohemians had short bursts of energy and were more reacting and trying to figure out what to do. At least that's, you know, from my initial knee-jerk reaction to how these cards are laid out. Okay, so that's the type of dice. That's not the type of dice. So that's what those numbers mean right there. Okay, so right next underneath it are the actions that the card can do. So the first action you have right here is attack. Most cards have that, not all of them, but most of them have attack. And if you want to take an action, this is where you're going to be looking at. So if you want to attack, this is the type of action. These are the restrictions that you have to fulfill before you do the action, and this is the target you have to strike, and these are the effects of the action. All right, so let me see if I can make that a little bit clearer. Action type, dice restrictions, target, effects. There you go, just like that. So with the Catholic League, or the Catholic League Cavalry, if you want to attack, you have to fulfill the restriction, which is a triplet, which means you need to have 3 3s or 4s on this dice before you can attack. And you have to make this the first target. So if you take a look, Schlick, let's see, where's the Bohemian League? Here's Schlick. This is the first card that the Catholic League Cavalry has to attack. If that unit is eliminated, then you're free to attack anybody you want, but normally at the beginning of the game you're restricted on who you can attack. So if we're taking a look at this, the Catholic League Cavalry can only attack Schlick first until it's eliminated, and Schlick can conversely only attack the Catholic League Cavalry till it's eliminated. So that kind of tells me these two units faced off against each other at the beginning of the fight. So, and the action is, for every triplet you pull off against Schlick, you're going to be inflicting 1 hit. So these guys aren't going to be doing a lot of damage because it's going to take 3 dice of either 3s or 4s to be able to inflict just 1 hit. But it's a 3 and a 4. You can put as many 3s and 4s on here as you want. So this cavalry is going to be charging up probably a lot and be used a lot. It's just going to be doing 1 hit every time it attacks. Here are reactions down here. Screen requires a pair and who it's targeting against. So basically a screen is, if you, and these reactions are cards you have to do these actions if you have the requirements for. So basically what a screen is if you fulfill the requirements on your card, you remove all the dice from your card that's on it, and you nullify the attack that the other person that you're identified as screening from being able to do their action. So for example, he is screening, or the Catholic Cavalry League is going to be screening. They're going to need a pair, and if they have a pair, and who is that? Hohenlohe. I speak German, but honestly, some of the names throw me a lot. If Hohenlohe makes an attack, where's Hohenlohe? Right here. If this guy makes an attack, this card has a pair of dice on it, matching pair of threes, pair of fours. Since they're targeted to him, they must do the screen. So now what does that mean? Like I said, say you've got 2 3s and 2 4s on here. Hohenlohe makes his attack. You have to screen by burning a pair, and I think it removes all the dice off this card, but it immediately stops who you're reacting to's attack. So probably didn't describe that the best way, but we'll see it in action when the game goes on. Okay, so now also here we just go ahead and take a look at this one. The Catholic League Infantry. It's got an attack, and it doesn't have any requirements. So as long as you have at least 1 6 on here, you can make the attack. But you're restricted to being able to attack in Hohenlohe first. If Hohenlohe's been eliminated, routed, then you can attack Schlick. If Schlick's been eliminated, then you can attack any formation you want. However, now we're looking at 1 hit per die, 1 self per action. Now you're going to see this in a lot of infantry units. So basically, however many dice you have on here that you want to burn, say you've got 3 dice, you want to make an attack action against Hohenlohe, you're going to inflict 1 hit per dice, which is, so say you want to burn your 3 dice. I think you can determine how many you want to use, so you can build up like 5 or 6 dice. I don't think you have to use them all. I may have to check that. So basically, you're going to inflict 1 hit per dice burned. So say you've got 3 dice on here, you use all 3 of them. You're going to inflict 3 hits on the first formation, if it's not destroyed, or the second formation if it's not destroyed, or whatever formation you want to if the first 2 formations are destroyed. However, you're also going to take 1 hit per action in return. So if you've got 3 dice on here, you'll do 3 hits, but you'll take 1 damage in return. I'm pretty sure that's what that means. Let me check real quick, because I was thinking maybe it was 1 hit on yourself per dice. Okay. How to win. Action phase. Take an action. Actions. Yeah, okay. 1 self means the acting formation loses 1 unit while making this attack. All right, so cool. There you go. What other special little things have we got here? Yeah, so basically the Catholic League Infantry, Liechtenstein, and Teufelbach are all 1 hit, 1 self per action. So whenever they attack, they're always going to be doing 1 hit to themselves. And actually, you're going to see that in most infantry, because we have the same here. Hohenlohe and Thurn, 1 hit per dice, 1 self per action. What are some other... Oh! Special cards. These cards, usually you're going to see these as artillery. Their special ability is going to be Bombard. Now, their special thing is they cannot be attacked as a regular formation. They're considered far enough back, and they can't be driven from the field or anything like that. But they've got this special little icon right here, 1, 2, or 3. That isn't how many hits the unit can take. That is actually how many special actions, which are marked by these white cubes, that you can have stacked on this. So you can have up to 3 special actions stacked on it. Now, how do you get a special action? Well, it's right there, straight 4. So you need a straight with 4 numbers in it to be able to put a special action dice on there. It's great. So what is it? So what can you do with that? Well, you can bombard. What does bombard mean? Well, bombard means is you burn one of your special actions and you automatically inflict one morale hit on the opponent. I'll get to morale in a little bit, but that is very important to remember. It is an automatic one morale hit. However, you can never remove the opponent's last morale cube. Also, you can screen any enemy attack you want as long as you've got one of these cubes on it. You burn one of these cubes, and you can do an automatic screen against any enemy attack, which will take all your dice off, but it doesn't take off all any. So if you've got 3 cubes on, you want to screen an attack, you burn 1 cube, any dice you have on here, and you'll screen any enemy attack. So this is a very, very flexible card. Really, really powerful card because it can screen any attack, where most units are limited by their historical rank and file formation, we've already kind of pointed this out. The Catholic League Infantry, if you go back and look historically, they fought against Hohenlohe and Schlicks formations before they were able to fight against anybody else. I actually really do kind of like that because it's forcing you to stick with historical face-ups and historical formations, rather than just being able to willy-nilly do anything you want on the battlefield. I know some people prefer the open ability. It's like, well, if I want to put these guys on the flank and these guys in the center, well, no, you're sticking with historical accuracy. I'm sure there might in the future come out with some rules where you can kind of tailor your own formations. But we don't have to worry about that right now. It's just go with what's on the card. So anyways, talking about morale. Each side has a morale value. Morale 4, morale 2, 4 for the Bohemians, 2 for the Imperial and Catholics. Basically, every time a unit loses its last cube, it runs away. It routes, and when that happens, you lose a morale. Or basically, the rules say you give your morale point to the opponent. But then you give the morale cube to your opponent. But, you know, for all intents and purposes, in my mind, I read it as you just lose a morale point. Now, let's see. I just realized I may be thinking that in my mind a little bit. Okay, totally lost my train of thought. Got to figure out I've not had caffeine yet this morning, so I'll be ready. Okay, yeah, I was reading it correctly. Basically, the morale is how many formations you can lose before you lose the game. So the Bohemians have 4 units, so they can technically, stay to the last unit. I mean, there is this special bombard thing here that can take away morale cubes. But failing that, the Catholics are going to have to eliminate every formation that's out there, whereas the Imperials and Catholics can only afford to lose 2 units. So, that's basically the anatomy of a card and how the flow, or how the cards interact with each other and what the numbers on the cards mean. Now, what is the turn sequence? Turn sequence is real easy. You start at the top, and does it say who goes first? I don't think it says who goes first. Where would it say who goes first? I think it's listed by who's on top and who's on bottom. Action phase. Dice. Reading the formation table. Flow of play. Oh yeah, that is the one thing. If you play a reaction, and you're forced to play a reaction, except for occasionally you will see things. It's not on here, but every once in a while you'll have a voluntary, so you can voluntarily react with whatever the reaction is. But most of the time it's a mandatory thing. So let's see. Still trying to figure out who starts first. Does the scenario card say? Oh, it does. First player, Bohemian Revolt. Second player, Imperial and Catholic League. Hey, look at that. Let's try reading the cards sometimes before you start overthinking things, Devin. All right, so a turn. Action phase, where you burn your dice. I do. One thing I did forget to mention. When you're placing the dice, During each dice roll phase, you're only allowed to place dice on one card. So, for example, if I rolled 2 3s, 2 4s, a 5, and a 6, I could only place dice on one card, even though I'm fulfilling the requirements of several cards. So I could place the 2 4s, the 1 5, the 1 6, or the 1 5 and the 1 6 on this card. There is a little bit of an expansion to that in other scenarios where you have the different wings with the different colors, dark blue, dark red, light red. You can place dice on one card per wing. Not something to have to worry about for this scenario because we've only got one wing per side. So yeah, got distracted there. Turns, right. I don't know why my mind is not working too well today. Like I said, not much caffeine yet. Action phase first. Decide what dice you want to burn on cards to activate them. Do the action. The opponent does their reaction if they're capable. Then you do your dice rolling. Then it flips over to the other player's turn. So it's always action phase first, then dice rolling. It seems, at first I was thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why don't you have the dice rolls first so you can see what dice you have and use those in combat? But then I realized since this was rank and file formations and communications was rather slow, the opponent sometimes saw what you were, well, not sometimes, oftentimes would see what you were doing and potentially could react to that. So therefore, you roll and place your dice, then it flips over to your opponent's turn immediately, so they get a chance to try to react to what you're potentially going to do. I hope that makes sense. Again, my first knee-jerk reaction was dice first, then action, but then the opponent really doesn't have a chance to see how your battle lines are forming up and what you're planning on doing. Like if you're putting dice on one card, it kind of shows that, all right, you're going to be pushing this formation ahead. With action first, then dice rolls, at least with the dice rolls being after the actions, your opponent is going to see what you're doing, giving them a chance to react, which oftentimes in rank and file warfare is what happened. Because you're sitting up on top of a hill, you got a pair of binoculars. If an opponent is putting a bunch of dice on one of his formations, it means he's really forming them up, starting to advance them, getting them in position to attack. That would allow the opposing commander a chance to be able to say, all right, maybe I should start working on trying to move to counter that threat. So, like I said, initially thought it was a bad idea to have actions then dice, but then as I started to think about it, it really made sense. Hope I made that clear. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be watching this going, what the hell is this guy smoking? Nothing, trust me. Let's see, we're 20 minutes into this. Do we actually want to start gameplay? No, but I will get gameplay out of this very quick. I did want to go over what the cards mean, what the numbers on them are, and get that out to y'all real quick. And remember, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms in the comment section. And also, if you ever have a problem, blame it on the Hessians. This is Devin, and I'll see everybody next time. See ya!